Hello and welcome back to the Binteger podcast. My name is Binny. I'm the host of this podcast. This is a place where we talk about integrity, where integrity calls and wholeness responds. This is episode number 24. So thrilled you could join me for a few moments as we explore sundry themes on integrity. Love that we focus in on this. I don't know if there's any other channel yet that hones in on this topic of integrity the way we do. And there are some fantastic talks on YouTube and other platforms that are more topical, which means they are exploring it, in one talk amidst many other topics. But this is the place where we hone in and say, integrity, we're going to blow this up. We're going to look at it from many vantage points. And my desire is that it would become more accessible as an idea for you so that you know how to apply it in your life, so you know why you should have it in your life, so you know how even what we're talking about. Because for a lot of people, this is a really difficult word to define, let alone try to see how it plays out in their lives. And so thrilled to be doing this podcast, so enthusiastic about the things that I have lined up for us to talk about and explore together. I love this discipline of trying to put this theme, this idea into understandable chunks so that you too can benefit as well from it. Integrity, my goodness, it's such a good ride. I should maybe even give you my definition that is my working definition, and we'll talk a little bit about my definition in contrast to other definitions today, because the theme that we are exploring today in our podcast is integrity a one-size-fits-all? Meaning, is there only one specific way we should be doing integrity, or are there multiple ways of us doing integrity? How do we approach this question? Is there like a standard that everyone must subscribe to, or are there just a choose your own adventure in relation to how one experiences and embarks on living with integrity? We'll dive into that in a few moments, but first, what we normally do in this podcast is we take a few moments to do a feelings check-in. This is my way of modeling and practicing integrity with myself in the moment, and I encourage you to do so as well. This is just where you basically give space for yourself to legitimize wherever you're at in this moment. You may be having a crappy day, own that feeling, reflect on it, consider what it means for you in this season, and even the necessity of expressing and feeling that and legitimizing and saying, it's okay that I'm having a crappy day and I feel really grumpy or whatever. It's okay to be able to express that and acknowledge it and to speak that truth to yourself. So for myself, how am I feeling today? Today was an interesting day where at work, I had a bunch of work that needed to get done. There was a bit of apprehension because there's some personnel logistics that I have to navigate through with some tactfulness. And so there's some uncertainty there as I talk to my higher ups about the best course in proceeding through these things. So there's some uncertainty that I'm feeling, some uneasiness for sure. But there's also a deep sense of gratefulness because I feel very well equipped and supported in my role of leadership at work. And so I feel a sense that I am doing what needs to be done and I'm being affirmed in some marvelous ways given how I've been extending myself. It's been a really busy season for many of us, hasn't it? Especially through the holiday season. Some of us have been doing some crazy overtime hours just because the work necessitates it. Others are still sort of trying to recalibrate maybe from time with family and trying to get some, alone time or some TLC for themselves. But in my context, it's been a busy season where I've been working some crazy hours, but I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying it even though it has been an inconvenience because it's an opportunity for me to be of service to others in the way that I'm able to handle. So it's not that I've been depriving myself or depleting myself energetically. Far from it. I have so much to give and I've been able to serve in some capacities that have really been meaningful for others. So I'm also super grateful for that. And when you're affirmed for things that you do really well, it's a nice feeling, so I'm really grateful for that. That's where I'm feeling right now today in this moment as a result of the day that I've had. I would love to hear how you're feeling, and I'd like to see you also stepping into that zone where you're like, hey, this is okay that I'm feeling whatever. It could be good, it could be challenging, whatever it is, we give space for that. Let me just give you a few vocabulary words as far as feelings go, these are the unpleasant emotions, for example, that arise when you feel like your values and desires aren't fulfilled to the degree that you're longing for. And some of these include loneliness. Maybe you're feeling discouraged or terrified, frustrated, or uncomfortable. Once again, these unpleasant emotions that you might be feeling if your needs and values aren't being fulfilled, even your desires. You might be feeling lonely. You might be feeling discouraged. You might be feeling terrified or perhaps frustrated or uncomfortable. Now, just sneaking over to the positive emotions cards or the positive feelings card. These are, of course, emotions or feelings that arise when your longings and desires are being fulfilled. And these are like lovely ones. There's ecstatic, loving, compassionate, inspired, and secure. Let me read those again. Ecstatic, loving, compassionate, inspired, and secure. So just tuck those away into your mind as you reflect on future opportunities to use them. Let's dive into our topic today. Is integrity a one-size-fits-all? What say you guys? How would you answer this question? Is there one form of integrity, or are there multiple forms of integrity? Just pause here if you'd like just to think through that question. And then I will continue. For my part, I would say integrity, yes, is a one-size-fits-all, and no, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So both yes and no is what my response would be. Let me see if I can break it down for you. I think as far as integrity goes, there's a one-size-fits-all by way of the makeup of what integrity is. I'm speaking here more to the definition of integrity. So this is where, let me give you my definition of integrity. And I would love for you to disagree if you're like, no, that doesn't resonate. And then maybe you propose yours. But here's what integrity means to me. Integrity for me, 4 parts, 2 progressions. Here's the first part, where your internal values, second part, aligns with your external actions. That's the progression, where your internal values, part 1, part 2, align with your external actions, and the progression is that alignment. Your internal values align with your external actions, second progression, while you're being true to yourself, that's part 3, and respectful to others as they try to figure out what their integrity looks like for them. You're being true to yourself and allowing others to figure their own walk of integrity. You're not trying to speak in and take note of others. So those are the 4 parts that I see with those 2 progressions within what my definition of integrity looks like. Once again, integrity for me is where one's internal values aligns with their external actions while they're being true to themselves, honest with themselves, and respectful of those around them who are trying to figure their own walk out. And so that's where my definition is. If you like my definition, wonderful, say, hey, I'm in. But if you don't, and you're thinking that it could be better, and you think there's some parts to it that you're like, I don't think this is part of it, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well too. So that is my one size fits all for integrity. That's the components that I think have to be in place for me to recognize and say, yeah, that's a progression of integrity in the acknowledgement of it. So yes, for me, it's a one size fits all because I believe that integrity necessitates alignment of one's internal values with their external actions. I don't think you can get away outside of that really core part of the definition. It necessitates that alignment of internal values with one's external actions. Furthermore, it necessitates a consistency and honesty with self. If you're only pursuing alignment only once in a while, that isn't integrity for me on display, okay? It needs to be consistent over time. You're committing to it and you're being consistent over time to align your internal values with your external actions. That's a necessity, I believe. And so that's where it's a one size fits all. Furthermore, it's a one size fits all by way of the necessity of self-awareness to be on display. You need to know what your values are, which means you need to do self-awareness and saying, what are my values? What do I think is really important? And what do I hold as my values? And that only happens when you are self-aware, when you're doing some serious self-awareness work in yourself. It is also a one size fits all because integrity necessitates that you stay in your lane. You have enough work on your own, working on yourself to focus on that you don't need to be focusing on what others are doing. You don't need to be like trying to gatekeep and critique others as they figure out their own way. Let others figure out themselves. You have enough work working on your own stuff. Okay, so stay in your lane. That's the final part of my definition, where I say, and being respectful of others, let others figure out what their values are and how they're going to go about it. You let them figure that out, because you have enough work for a lifetime figuring out your own stuff, as I have my own work cut out for me for a lifetime, trying to work on me as a person and make sure that I'm fulfilling what integrity for me looks like. So that's a one size fits all, I believe. Integrity is kind of like this umbrella, if you will. So I think integrity is this umbrella, this general umbrella that over encompasses all of these values underneath it. See, all these values exist under the umbrella of integrity. Integrity is just basically you're choosing which values you align with, but it encompasses all of these values. And it's just a question of you saying, which values do I find really important? Which values do I prioritize? And so this is why I believe that integrity is a one size fits all when it comes to the definition of how we understand integrity. And that's what I keep on proposing. And I'd love for you to be able to either concur or disagree with my definition. But that's where I believe it starts. Now, what are these values that we're talking about that we can choose from that are so diverse that you can prioritize? Here are some, handful of values that you might resonate with. Pardon me for this water break. All right, so some of these values include optimism or honesty, respect, compassion, responsibility, perseverance, courage, gratitude, humility. Man, that's one of my favorite ones. Generosity, loyalty, fairness, self-discipline, open-mindedness, love, creativity, reliability, wisdom, adaptability. There's a whole range more of values that you might be like, no, this is my value that I really resonate with. So a whole bunch of values that we resonate with, but these are all under the umbrella that integrity oversees, if you will. And so, like I said, first part of the definition is integrity is where your internal values, whichever ones they are, and which values are you supposed to choose? Well, that's up to you. And I think that's different from person to person. And this is where I believe that integrity is not a one size fits all, because we have different ways of approaching it, especially when it begins with what are the values that we subscribe to? What are the things that we hold near and dear to ourselves, saying this is so important? Now, this is where it's really important for us to be respectful of others and their differing values. For me, one of my top values is honesty. Another one of my top values is humility, for example, right? These are really, really important for me because of my background experiences, because of the things that I've had to go through in life that say, this is why these are really important. But my values may be different from someone else's. Someone else might choose fairness or hard work or reliability as their top one. And that's totally legitimate, because that might be important. Our values that we select to change because of our experiences or our upbringings or our preferences or our convictions. It's so diverse, the reasons for why we choose the values that we choose. But the thing is, we need to choose what those values are. And this is where it becomes very subjective. And this is where we need to make space for each other to be able to choose and give each other the courtesy to choose whichever ones that they're choosing. So the values are chosen very likely from a different, and they're very different from person to person. Honor that. Honor someone else's different choices. And this is where I said, stay in your lane. You figure out what your values, let other people figure out what their values are, and walk into and embark in pursuing what integrity looks like for them. Because like I said, you have enough work for a lifetime figuring out how to align your own values with your own actions and trying to become a better person as you commit to integrity. So fellow Binteger, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Give others the courtesy and grace to be able to choose what it looks like for them and to walk and embark into that while you figure out what yours looks like. So that, in short, is why I believe that integrity is, yes, a one-size-fits-all when it comes to the definition of it, but not a one-size-fits-all, because we have so many different options of choosing the values that we're going to subscribe to and how we're going to live and lean into that for the rest of our lives. So I hope that has been helpful for you to see that integrity is one of those nuanced conversations. If you aren't walking with integrity, today's a really amazing day to start. So I hope you consider what your values are and begin this amazing, exciting walk. Thanks for listening in. See you soon.